Welcome, dear listener, to the scary depths of the worst things that police have seen. Go past the thin blue line and into the dark, where brave former police officers tell their scary stories. We go deep into the scary. The thin layer of safety is peeled away to reveal the hidden horrors that walk the streets with the people who are sworn to protect and serve. Picture yourself in the middle of the night, with only the sound of a police radio and sirens far away breaking the quiet. It is these stories that even the most experienced cops get chills over. They are told in whispers in the quiet parts of the station, but now they're out in the open for you to see and experience for yourself. This video may contains moderate jump scares and is not recommended for people that are easily scared. Additionally, if you dislike or find discomfort in being alone in a dark room or have claustrophobia, this is also not recommended. But at the same time, you could enjoy this fears if you choose. The pictures in this video are not real pictures. It's just used for imagination purposes. Please subscribe, like, and share to your coward friends. People have always thought badly of police officers because their power is often abused. Police, on the other hand, are the first ones called when there's trouble, so they'll definitely see some scary things. Here are 4 scary stories about past police officers. I was a police officer for 30 years, retiring at age 50. Of course, I got some strange calls, but I'll never forget the night that my partner George and I were called to a report of domestic abuse. The call came from a neighbor, and these calls were never really a big deal. They just gave us something to do at night. We went to the house, but I didn't like dealing with couples fighting and all that other stuff. She told me that sounded like one of the doctors who used to rent the office at the end of the hall on the 2nd floor. She then told me that he had killed himself at his summer home a few days before. I can still clearly remember the address and how the door was left wide open. As soon as we walked inside, the strong smell of marijuana filled our lungs. It wasn't just marijuana, though. There was also the strong smell of chemicals, which we thought were meth or cocaine. We let the couple know we were there by asking them to come out into view, and a thump from upstairs let us know where they were. George had his hand on this pocket and was about to pull out his gun. I wasn't scared yet, so George told me to quietly go up the stairs. We usually listened to each other, so I put up with his paranoia. There were 3 doors open and 1 closed. The closed door led to where the thud in the ceiling was, so I banged on the door before swinging it open. The smell was the first thing we noticed, followed by the body, which was clearly rotting. We pulled our guns because we knew even in the dark. George turned on the light, and I told him to look around that room while I looked around the rest of the house. I was shaking all over. I hated my job so much right then that I wanted to run back to my car and leave because I thought I might die at any time. My hand got stuck on the doorknob until I finally had the guts to turn it and force the door open. I turned on the light, but no one was there. The room was eerily small with no windows and only a dirty old cot for furniture. George screamed out of the blue, and I ran across the hall to see what was going on. I saw a naked man lying flat on top of one of the tables in the room, and we were holding him with a gun. I was telling him to get down when something grabbed my ankle and pulled me to the floor. A hand came out from under the bed. I stopped on the arm with my other foot and pulled out a weak, trashy-looking woman who was obviously drunk. I handcuffed her, and George handcuffed the man. We were on our way outside with the 2 crazy people yelling at us, but there was one more surprise in store. Some psycho from upstairs started yelling and charging at us down the stairs with a knife raised in the air. George reacted just in time to save my ass by shooting the psycho dead. This was a crack house, but none of the neighbors could smell anything fishy. The woman on the bed was killed by the man we caught, who admitted to killing her because he owed money. He was given a life sentence without parole, and the woman was given a 30-year sentence. My friend and I from my squad responded to an alarm. The scene of the crime was an old office building that had been turned into a doctor's office with a drugstore attached. Our dispatch got a motion signal from an office on the second floor. The key holder got there and we were going to lock up the building. The steps were locked behind a door that the key holder didn't have a key to, so we took the lift up to the second floor. When the lift door opens, it leads to a hallway that is completely dark, with only one ceiling light at the end of the passage. As we check each door, we see that they are all locked. When we get to the last office, we see that the doors are open, so we go inside and see that it is empty. The door led into a large waiting room, and in the office area, 10 or 12 testing rooms were all empty and ready to go. As soon as we leave the office, something doesn't seem right. That's when I noticed that the ceiling light at our end of the hallway, which had been on, was now off. Another light was put in its place over at the lifts. My team member is all white when I ask him what's wrong. He tells me that all of the doors we just checked were locked and closed. I tell him yes, and my friend says, well, now they're all standing open. Sure enough, all the offices down the hallway that we had just checked are now standing open. This is when the shock sets in, and we start clearing out and locking up the offices. Once we were done with the last office, the main door slammed shut right before we turned the corner into the waiting area. Our radio then went crazy with some kind of noisy feedback. I want to leave that place right now. Once again, we get back in the lift and go down to the first floor, where we hope to find the key holder again. However, they are nowhere to be found. I call dispatch and ask for the key holder's callback number so I can let him know what we found. The key holder was still on their way to us, and dispatch said they would be there in 5 minutes. I told dispatch that we had already been out with a key holder dispatch request. I call them and talk to dispatch. She tells me that there's no way we were out with the key holder because the alarm company had just gotten in touch with one. Eventually, the real key holder shows up, and I ask her about the man who led us into the building. She asks me to describe him, and I do. She says that he sounds like one of the doctors who used to rent the office on the second floor at the end of the hall. Going to the village to answer a call. Someone across the street was hearing noises coming from one of the empty houses and thought it was probably someone breaking in. When I got there, I started looking around the building. When you first saw it, it was a 2-story convenience store. Now everything was taken down except the bar and shelves, which were still connected to the floor. Also, the lights inside didn't work. I went down every little aisle and looked for anyone who might be hidden. Then I did the same thing upstairs. I looked back at the building as I got back in my car and saw someone at the window on the second floor. It was a woman with long gray hair that fell past her shoulders. She was probably smiling big as she looked down at me. I ran back inside quickly and made it upstairs in less than 10 seconds. The window was clear though, and no one could be seen. I was about to give up again and leave for good when I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. It was a dark shade of black that stuck to the ceiling. When I shined my light up there, she was there. This crazy woman still looked at me with a scary smile on her face as she held on to 2 things that looked like hooks in the ceiling with her hands and leaned her feet against the floor for support. She ran all the way down to the station like a crazy person. She looked at me in the mirror, and I don't know if she was crazy or not. It felt like she was just messing with me, but not in a good manner. As a police officer in Floyd County, Georgia, I had only seen 2 horrifying things. I'll tell you about the worst of them. It was a slow night, and I was driving my cruiser along the dirt roads in this area. There were small woods on both sides of the road, and that's when it all began. I saw someone jump into the woods on the left. I only saw half of them because they were gone so fast. I pulled up closer and tried to shine a torch into the woods, but I couldn't see them. It was my job to check on things like this, so I slowly got out of the car and started looking. I was about to pull out my gun because I was so scared. But then I heard the familiar snap of a branch from behind a tree. It almost made me run back to the car, but I did my job and called for them to come out. A person in a mask came out from behind the tree. I told them to slowly raise their arms, take off their mask, and come to me. They did raise their hands, but they didn't take off their mask. I tried to show that I was in charge by yelling again, telling them to take it off. They looked like they were about to do it when they looked to their left and then back at me. I then heard footsteps coming from my right. I pulled out my gun. You might be wondering why I yelled so loudly for everyone to come out with their hands up. Well, if you were in that situation, you would have killed yourself too, just like I did. Someone else wearing a mask walked over this person holding an axe. My gun was trained on him, but all of a sudden I heard footsteps coming from everywhere. When I turned around, I saw that at least 10 people wearing masks were standing around me in a circle, with only a small gap in the middle. Half of them were carrying axes or other weapons of mass destruction. I stood there with my gun raised, but I wasn't even aiming at anything at this point. One of them made me feel like I was going to throw up. I don't know what finally broke the quiet, but he told me to leave in a deep, muffled voice. My heart sank as he said it, but I knew I was going to live. I turned around and ran for my car, driving down the road for half a mile while calling for help. He thought the whole group was already out of the woods when a search SWAT team came. According to my theory, what I saw was some kind of crazy secret society planning to trap an innocent bystander. I think that whoever jumped into the woods as I was driving by saw that my car was a police car and tried to hide. If I wasn't a police officer, I think they would have stopped me, led me to the woods, and done whatever this group does for fun. So there you have it, folks. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe for more stories.